Welcome to another episode of the Up and Running Pod. As you hear that music, you know what it means. Alabama got knocked out Saturday afternoon in Tennessee at Neyland Stadium. The Volunteers took it to Alabama. Sloppy, ugly game. But with me tonight, Mike Mills is back in action. Mike, how you been doing, my friend?
What's going on, brother? It's good to be back. It's good to be back on the Up and Running Pod. A little curveball for listeners. Justin leading off tonight, so I'm excited to be back on the show. A lot to get into today with tonight's show. And listen, we've got a jam-packed show for everyone tonight. But Justin, I was rooting for Alabama, and boy, a lot of cigar smoke out in Tennessee as they beat Alabama. That was a tough loss.
Yeah. It's tough in essence that it's the second loss of the season. What you hope for is really good college football. That's what happened in that game. But it's got to be good college football. It can't be bad, undisciplined mistakes. Alabama's got a lot to work for, a lot to work towards. I've said it 3 weeks in a row. Whatever happened at halftime of the Georgia game, they went in there and they started smelling their own stuff. It ain't worked the last 3 weeks. Vanderbilt, South Carolina had a chance, and now Tennessee have beaten them 2 out of 3 games, and that's just not the standard for which you set. You have a coach that wasn't prepared to coach in the SEC. Excuse me, but I'm telling you now, you will hear me again and again, and I'll never come off of this. It's not about DeBoer replacing Nick Saban. It's about not understanding what it takes to win in a conference where you have to be ready to go week in and week out. No, not the NFL, but anybody can show up in the SEC and win. And right now, everybody's proving that Alabama is not worthy of their name getting them likes and points come playoff time.
Well, listen. I understand what you're trying to say, but I do think some of the Kalen DeBauer criticism is a little unfair, right? I agree that he may not have understood what it takes to win in the SEC. I don't think you can say that he was not ready. I think the fact that you're used to an Alabama team that's got intense discipline, you're used to an Alabama team that doesn't make on-field mistakes or really bad penalties, because there are some good penalties to make in college football. They're making bad penalties. And the problem with that is I think that's shocking the Alabama fans. It's shocking you for sure, because we've talked about it. But I don't know if he just wasn't not ready to coach in the SEC. I think it's a learning curve, no doubt about it, because it's different than any conference in football, and that's for sure. And I think that it takes understanding that you can show up on Saturday and get beat by anybody. 1-5 team coming out of the SEC can beat most teams. And so I think that the problem is what people aren't or what he's not realizing is what you just said. But I don't think it's fair to say that he wasn't ready to coach.
You might be right in that statement. The thing is, and you're probably right, as we're going to get to a little bit later. But maybe not being ready to coach a team that was coached by somebody that had such a regimen for what you were doing. I mean, Jalen Monroe, these guys that have been there, they know the process. They know the standard that was set. A lot of what is going on during the games, a lot of what Milroe is running into isn't playing against great teams. It's not what's causing it. It's a lack of focus. One of the players after the Vanderbilt game even said so, that Kalen DeBoer has kind of gotten heavier on him. He's been a little more focused on what the job is that needs to be done. Look, they played perfect half against Georgia, and then for the last 12, 14 quarters, you have not played anywhere near the standard of Alabama football.
Sure.
Why? Sure. What that reason is, one, okay, Vanderbilt's not a great team, but they have a team this year. Georgia is a great team, proved that Saturday. And so for that second half, yeah, they came out and played. Now, did it happen at the end of the game? Did you got smacked around a little bit? Georgia almost won, and you realized, oh, you lost confidence? Like, it just doesn't make sense for what has happened since that half. And as much as people want to say, well, you got to stop blaming them, you got to stop this. Look, the bottom line is this. It doesn't matter. It's almost like if Jerry Jones didn't own the Cowboys, it's the Cowboys, right? It's your beloved New York Yankees. Like, there's no standard of oh, this is okay. I mean, I put out there the other day, look, this is what other teams have gone through for 20 years, and Alabama's been fortunate with Saban not to deal with this. The bottom line is this: I can tell you now, I don't think they're done in the right column. I think there's another one coming, and it
Could
ain't the
be.
playoff.
Yeah, it could be.
And that's something that really the focus, the listen, the biggest debacle against Vanderbilt was you sent the same number, two players with the same number one. Like that's coaching. That's special
Sorry.
teams coaching. You got to understand. People have to understand. Granted, these are teenagers, but the coaches have to handle their business.
Yeah, and listen, I'm with you on that. Like I said, bad penalties, and it's crazy to see this whole same number in college football. I saw a kid from Miami put on a different jersey, played the onside. The quarterback or one of the backup quarterbacks from Miami, I guess, or running back, played the onside kick under a different number. Take the jersey off and then played offense under number 7. And I was like, that's got to be somewhere somehow that can't be allowed. But apparently it is in college football because, as we will get to later in the show, anything and everything is now allowed in college football and in college athletics as far as we go, where this has become the Wild West. And you will find out whether or not Justin and I feel like that is ruining college athletics or is it improving college athletics. So we will get to that later on the show. But as we always start off with the segment of our hometown teams, what we're talking about, teams that are near and dear to our hearts. We talked about Alabama getting beat for the second time, and Justin mentioned the beloved New York Yankees are back in the World Series since 2009, and I could not be more excited. Let's go Yankees all day, every day. Yankees-Dodgers meeting for the first time in a long time, but the 12th overall time meeting in the World Series. So I am really excited to see what that is. Yankees have the head-to-head lead in that World Series is 8-3.
Yep.
So I'm hoping we put a little 9-3 on that as it comes down. We're going to talk about the matchup. We're going to talk about what happens. Justin, give me your first thoughts because I know you're just as excited as I am that the Yankees are in the World Series.
Listen, so I've gone back and forth. We've talked about this. I'm not a Yankees or a Dodgers fan, but I will tell you this: it's exciting for me, for anybody that loves baseball, for one reason. You're going to see the MVPs of this season.
Absolutely.
You are going to see the greatest player you've ever seen in your lifetime. And you are going to see an offensive show. And all three of those reasons I just gave come down to one thing. Shohei Ohtani versus Aaron Judge. And I wink when I do that Aaron Judge because they've had another stud. But Aaron Judge is the show, okay?
Sure.
Juan Soto is by far the show of the playoffs so far. But Aaron Judge is really what you want to see against Ohtani. It's kind of what we've always hoped with Mike Trout, never got it. But Shohei versus Judge is going to be what you're looking for as far as the batting goes. And then we're going to get into this more later, but definitely in the pitching matchups. But first thought is offense. Can't wait to see what happens with these guys and what they get done.
So it's interesting you bring that up. So you talk about the Shohei and Judge. I would go a little farther and say that I think this is going to be a big three versus a big three, right? I think you have Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman on their side, on the Dodger side. And then on the Yankee side, you're going to have Judge, Soto, and Stanton. Stanton has had a resurgence this postseason, has been a monster, come up with big hits, big home runs as well, and timely at bats. Soto gotten on base a ton and had delivered the knockout punch to Matty B's beloved Guardians, which I could not be more thrilled that we beat them. I have not reached out to him yet. Gave him some time. Got to be respectful when it comes to sports. Give him a little bit of time. So I did. I will be letting him know after this comes out that what I feel about the Yankees going to the World Series. But I gave him some time. But I do think that on our side, that you're talking about Soto, who's gotten on base a ton, walked a ton. But Judge has also walked a ton. I know he's batting sub 200, and he's not having that good of a postseason, as my boss at work continually lets me know that he doesn't think Judge has done much, and I understand. But he did enough to get us there. Yes, he has not had a great postseason, and yes, he's going to need a big game in the World Series to kind of make up for that. But boy, Soto literally has a blank check in his hand, and he can write whatever number he wants on there, and the Steinbrenners better pay him.
Yeah, and they will. They got to be smart, and they will. But definitely can't wait to get to more to that. A lot to get into with the series starting on Friday, game 2 on Saturday. But back to college football. And last thing, by the way, I bought 2 cigars for Saturday night. Really excited to smoke them, and then I don't get to. Also, Saturday night, didn't get to watch the football game. And I have no complaints about that, honestly. I kept kind of up to date with it as I was at dinner. Addison and Mason both had homecoming. Addison hobbling around with her boot. She sprained her ankle badly in field hockey. But they looked wonderful. Great kids. Very fortunate. But we were at Maggiano's and then took them to
classy spot. Good for you.
Yep,
Good
classic.
for you.
And then took them to the dance. And as I dropped them off, I continued to cry on the way home as our season is over. But let me tell you something.
Wait, you cried because Alabama, or you cried because you had your kids going to homecoming? Because there's a big difference.
I cried because Alabama's season is over. It's entertaining. But listen, that was a big game in the SEC, but not the biggest. Saturday night, like I said last week, Georgia, Texas. You're going to find out if Texas can handle the SEC. Let me tell you something, brother. We found out they cannot. They are not what you thought they were. Quinn Ewers is not the quarterback that's going to change teams in the draft. And let me tell you something else. You heard it right here first on the Up and Running pod that Arch Manning will not do anything at Texas worth talking about. And he will not be an NFL quarterback for more than one season as a starter. 30-15, Georgia handles Texas. Mike, it really could have been probably 45-7, 45-0. But when you're playing in Texas, things, as we found out, are a little bit different for the boys in the white and black stripes.
So I can tell you this. So being here in Houston, everyone's a Longhorn or an A&M fan when it comes here. And boy, everybody thought Texas was going to rout Georgia. Texas is the best team in the nation and blah, blah, blah. And I can tell you, I sat and watched that game going, there's no chance. Texas doesn't have a prayer against Georgia. And they didn't. They looked overmatched. The lights were way too bright for them when it came to that game. And Georgia manhandled them. I can tell you, I disagree on the Arch Manning. I don't think Arch Manning is going to be, this incredible NFL player. I don't. I think he's going to be better than Ewers, and I think Arch Manning will have something to talk about at Texas. I don't think that when you say he's never going to do anything worthwhile at Texas, I disagree. I don't think he'll do worthwhile in the NFL, but I do think he's going to be a solid quarterback in college football. He's going to be better than Ewers was in his career at Texas. I think Arch Manning has a better career than Ewers at Texas. I think he does develop and get better. But I do agree with you. I don't think that he is going to be an NFL quarterback for much more than what his name will carry and to have him on the team. But yeah, I didn't like what I saw. I also don't think Ewers is that good as a decision maker either. And so he's going to struggle there as scouts see that. Didn't do well under pressure. But I can tell you, recently with quarterbacks, in college football, they do not handle pressure well. It is a rarity in the past 2 years to find a good college quarterback that handles pressure well. And I tell you, that's what I think scouts should start looking at when it comes to the NFL, because if you don't handle pressure well, you will get blitzed all game, all day in the NFL. And if you can't make teams pay, it's going to come all night. And that's going to be a long, long game.
Yeah. I tell you now, talk about Ewers and Arch. And Georgia got healthy on defense, and I don't want to play them again. They're really, really good.
Georgia's the best team in the country. They lost a dogfight to Alabama in a bright light situation where Alabama had the ball at the made the last play. I would say, I don't want to say he had the ball at the end, but made the last play. Yep. And Georgia got beat. And it is what it is. But Georgia was the best team in the nation, is the best team in the nation, and then blew Texas out, who a lot of people, including several of the group chat guys and faithful listeners of the show, picked Texas being the number one team in the nation. And I haven't come off Georgia since.
Yeah, and that's it's wild to think that the score says that Texas had a chance there at the end. Let's get into something you brought up earlier about just how the Wild West is forming right now. First thing, everybody knows that you have cameras all over the place in the world. Now the NFL and NCAA football both have review systems They're in place. So we use them to make things work. The one thing you can't do, or we thought you couldn't do, was review a pass interference call. The only call that is reviewed is targeting, because that involves an ejection of a player who also will not be able to play the next game, or if it's in
Correct.
the first half, just the rest of that game. So here's the situation. Georgia's driving. Carson Beck throws the ball up, picked off by Texas, takes it to the 9-yard line. There's laundry on the field. Pass interference, Texas. First down, Georgia. Then the stadium goes bananas. They thought they were in Cleveland or Philadelphia in the NFL and threw beer bottles, trash, cans, anything they could on the field. The referees go to review, which is unheard of, unprecedented, and a new thing, and then flip the call.
Bananas.
Everybody has covered this and said, this is crazy. But here's where it gets bad. How much money, how much fandom, and how much alcohol is done at a college game, and what Kirby Smart said is the truest statement that's ever been said. What you have done is set up to where if you don't like a call, you trash the field, and a review process will happen. Even when it's never happened before in the history of the world, even in the NFL. And you change a call, and I can tell you, as much as I hate Georgia, and I don't like Texas either, but they're new here. I hate Georgia. But you hose somebody like that, you, one, deserve to be fired. Two, Texas should be fined triple what they were fined. And three, anybody that was caught throwing debris, not only should your tickets be suspended, because that's what Texas has done, you also should have some type of demerit in your schooling if you're a student there. But
so
that is horrendous.
Do you think that they got the call right?
No.
So you think the reversal was the wrong call?
No. I don't think the reversal was the wrong call.
Okay.
The reversal is the wrong call because of what the rules say.
100. Listen, I'm with you there.
The flag, my question is, the flag wasn't a great flag.
Agreed. Okay, I agree there too. It wasn't a great flag.
It wasn't a great flag.
Correct. It's a bad flag. It's a bad flag.
It's a bad flag. The problem was you threw it. And honestly, this is where it's tough. This is where it's tough because I have said for years that I think if you're only gonna review touchdowns and scoring, if you only review scoring plays, I'm fine with that. That's it. But the second you review everything else, why would you not review a flag?
Sure.
I can understand the holding because that can be called every day. I get that. Every play you can call holding somewhere, some form.
Sure.
There's no determinate amount of how long you hold a jersey because everybody grabs. But pass interference is pretty black and white. If the quarterback has thrown the ball and you have your hands or pull on a jersey or a shoulder pad or bump the receiver in a way that's past 5 yards and egregious,
I get
it's a flag.
So let me give you a solution real quick. Let me give you a solution that I think that simplifies this, and we may speed through some of that because I agree with you. If you're going to review touchdowns in under 2 minutes and that's it, that's it. But if you're not, you do open yourself up. But here's where I think that the mistake happened. Again, throwing the flag. But here's where I think the solution can be. Let the coaches challenge any play, anytime, anything that they want. And you get 3 a game. Or the 2 plus if you get both right, you get an extra third. Right? Because at that moment, that coach can challenge that pass interference call. And you avoid the bottles being thrown on there. You avoid the issues on there. You've given the coach the chance. Now, if he's blown his 2 challenges, you got nobody to blame but the coach. You can't throw bottles on the field and get mad at the rest because your coach has blew 2 of his challenges in the game. I think we've got to get to the point where if you're allowed to challenge, or if we're going to start reviewing plays, give it to the authority of the coaches where they can challenge. And if you want to give them more than 2, I'm fine with that too. But I think because you're right. What Kirby Smart said is that if that happens again on any other game and they review the call, that's going to be the norm now. It's going to be the norm where you trash the field and the refs have to do a decision or there's fear for their safety or whatever nonsense. McConaughey actually even put out a statement talking about man, this ain't cool, man. All right, all right, all right. Don't be doing
Yeah.
that. Hilarious statement because I had to read in McConaughey's voice because you just that's the celebrity that I want to go spend 24 hours with because he's an
All day
absolute
long.
character all day
Yes.
long. All of us in the group chat agree that if you get 24 hours with celebrity, he's the one we're picking because that's who you want to go.
He probably didn't go to Diddy parties either, so I definitely want to be.
Let me tell
him.
you, there's no chance he did, but the stories you would come away with for just 24 hours being with McConaughey would be legendary. So,
yeah.
But he wrote a thing to Texas, which he's big. He's big for UT out here. He really is.
Oh, yeah.
And so I appreciated what he said because he was like, we can't do this. We've got to, win with class and lose with class. And I appreciate that. But I think to solve the issue for other colleges going forward is going to be give coaches the opportunity to challenge whatever call, whatever flag they want, whatever play they want. And you get 2, you get 3 a game because you can't be doing this all day long because we'll never finish a football game. But do that to where now it's not on the ref as much, but it is on the coach at this point. Because if you make a bad call, you've got a challenge in your pocket to challenge.
Well, see, and I think that brings up a point, Mike. And I know I don't want to get too off course with football, but that brings up a point to baseball. They have the reviews, the new
Sure.
pitch strike thing. They tap the cap and they'll review it and they'll go through the screen thing, which is great in essence. And you're not going to get any coaches tossed. You're not going to have any Lou Pinellas putting his foot on the dirt on the plate. You're not going to have some things that have made the baseball you and I love great.
Sure.
In college football, there's no place for what happened Saturday.
Sure.
There's no place for that.
Sure.
And real quick, just a 10-second tidbit here. There's no place as 11 seed when you beat a one-loss Alabama for taking down the goalpost. You do that when you beat them for the first time, not 2 years later when it's the second time in a row. Tennessee has no class. None.
There you go. Here's mad because you got beat. Let them take the goalpost down anytime they feel like it.
Why are they taking it down? At what point? I mean, if Georgia's at home and beats Texas, that's Vanderbilt. If Georgia's at home and beats Texas, they're not storming the field because they beat the number 1 team because they've been there before. You've already beaten Alabama at home. You did it 2 years ago. No need to take them down. Celebrate on the field, but stop being drunk. You don't know how to win because you're not Alabama and you've been beat for 18 years in a row.
It's the same reason why people celebrate when they beat the Yankees, right? You beat the Yankees, everybody celebrates. You hang that feather in your cap. People hang Alabama wins in their cap because Matt still has no feather in his cap because Ohio State, I don't think, has beaten Alabama in anything but Scrabble at this point because they definitely can't beat Oregon either, and we've proven that because speed kills. Ohio State went out and paid for the most money in the NIL deals to go get this team and show up and still not win their conference. It's amazing to me how bad that university is. That is the most historic one-loss university in the history of college football. Most historic.
Matt's going to come on this show and get pissy. He's going to call in.
It's amazing to me how many seasons they go and lose one game, and it's always a big game, and it's always they can't get over the hump. They just can't do it. They're the most one-loss franchise I've ever seen in my life that doesn't win titles. It's amazing to me.
But back to the Georgia-Texas game, I think you have to do something there. I agree. This is where technology can be great. Let's use it. We have it. The harder part is, as much as I say it in football, and actually heard Tony La Russa today on the radio said he enjoyed all the new things. The baseball has gotten better for the casual fan. Baseball has not gotten better for true fans. That I don't care how long it takes. If I'm going to sit down and watch a game, I want to watch the game. The strike ball zone, is going to be different. I like the way they do it. It's quick, but I'm going to miss the manager or the player.
Yeah, no, I get that.
That's going to be tough because they're going to be like, oh, everything's okay. We just touch our helmet. Anyway, moving on from Georgia, Texas.
Yeah, let me segue this one because I for the listeners, Justin and I do a show sheet every episode, and normally I never follow it. Normally I don't go down it. Justin does a lot of prep work, and I show up, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna figure this out. And we go through the show sheet, but I did like the show sheet that Justin put together today, so we are going to use this, or I'm finally going to use it. I can tell you that I got it up in front of me, and one of them is this. Is Nick Saban and Pat McAfee outstanding on game day? And the answer is emphatically yes. Those two are absolute legends on game day, and I love watching them interact.
Yeah, so I was pulling up the sheet so I could show.
They are. Yeah. No one can see that.
It's like anyway.
Everybody,
I
the only
might
people that
post
show up and watch the video are people to see the hat collection that you show up with.
I know. Need
I
to
can
get some
tell
new
you,
ones. Listen,
they are absolutely electric on game day, and that has become the new. I will tell you this: what I love about this. So my wife is an absolute huge fan of College Game Days. Watched it for years, as she's a barber and she watches it in the barbershop, right? My wife's a big Lee Corso fan. You've heard me say that on the show. She follows the headgear pick. She loves the headgear pick. She then wants to watch the game to see, or at least know the result of the game to see if Lee Corso was right. Huge fan of Lee Corso. I do love how they're transitioning this new McAfee and Saban to be, okay, this is going to be something that's big for the show coming forward when and if Corso ever decides to retire, because he has earned the right to call it quits whenever he wants to, and he goes out on his own terms. But boy, College Game Day is exciting.
well, I think the great thing about it is Saban can be himself, right? He's not having to play to a crowd. He's not having to do anything but be himself because he's a fun guy. And Pat McAfee, I'll be honest, the show wasn't something that I wanted to watch. Like I wasn't interested, and I don't want to say he got ESPN'd, but his show has evolved into something that is must-watch TV. Must-watch TV.
It absolutely is. Yeah.
And now on game day, he is a completely different human on that show compared to what you've had. So much excitement. What he does with the kick, what he does by getting the crowds riled up. I mean, last year's SEC championship game when he got Georgia going, and then said, "Give me that Roll Tide." I mean, it's phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
But they make statistical football and talking about players a lot more fun. And I like Herb Street and Reese Davis.
Herb Street's a classic.
And coaches on there. And, I love these guys. But at the end of the day, those two in the middle, I could just watch them. Like they do a segment every week. I could just watch them do that.
What's interesting so you left off Desmond Howard, sits in the leadoff spot, right? But what's interesting when you left him off is I thought he does get a little bit forgotten on the show. Desmond Howard's good, but he does make his pick quick. So he's got to get to the more characters, the guest picker, all that kind of stuff. Desmond Howard doesn't get a lot of time on the show, but I also think he's a character that they may or may not phase out. You never know. But I think the Saban McAfee has been great. Whenever Corso retires, they may just shift down. I can't see Herb Street and McAfee sitting beside each other. I just don't see that happening. I could see McAfee sitting in the middle and moving moving Saban next to Herb Street, or maybe between the guest picker. But you cannot break that duo up. You cannot break Saban and McAfee up, because I had no idea that was going to be such a dynamic duo. But boy, are they fun to watch.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite part. Well, it is my favorite part of game day. Just them two next to each other and what they've got going on. Listen, game day's lost so many people throughout the years that we've watched, growing up and all that.
Sure.
And Howard, and excuse me, Desmond, for forgetting about you there. I didn't really forget. I just couldn't remember your name. But Reese Davis taking over for Chris Fowler did a great job. Yep. Herb Street, being a stalwart there. Coach has been there for years making his picks with the headgear. Now you've got Saban and McAfee's essentially still a newcomer. But what McAfee does, he takes that WWE personality and he takes his show and he just mashes them together for game day. And listen, I'm telling you, it is the most insane thing you've ever seen. And this week, I've been wanting to talk about this team because I'm a huge Bob Knight guy. They are an Indy freaking Anna, who is also ranked ahead of Alabama, which is absolutely insane, in the Big Ten, and they're bringing the show to Indiana for football. Never thought in a million years we would say anything about that.
Never. That's not even that good of a game. Washington at Indiana, it's not even going to be that good of a game. I was really surprised they picked that. I thought Notre Dame Navy would have gotten a little bit of play there. I thought that's a big matchup this week. Top 25 matchup. Navy has a historic team, which we're getting into with Army and Navy. Both of them historic programs are being really, really good. I was a little surprised that Army Navy didn't get the bid. I understand LSU and A&M not getting it because they've gone to A&M so many times. But, man, you had a good chance to go Notre Dame Navy. And I know they do the Army Navy game as well, so I get that they're not going to go there. But, man, that would have been a good game to go to.
Well, I think the issue there, Mike, is the neutral site. So
okay.
They might not. They're not going to get the student presence there, so they went to this. I mean, I think it's the only chance you're getting a Big Ten game.
That game's at MetLife. You're right.
So
Yeah,
I
that game's at
think
MetLife.
that's the
Fair
big
enough.
thing there. And then Indiana's next big game. I mean, really, I think it probably is a good game.
Never.
Yeah, you've got Michigan, Purdue are the last two home games. Speaking
this
of
got
Indiana,
one of the very few times game day's ever been in Indiana, if not the first.
I think it's the first.
I was going to say it's got to be something up there. Yeah.
But speaking about the Big Ten, I mean, they had the OSU game November 23rd. That could be your other representative. Oregon's going to run the table. That could be your other representative in the Big Ten. If Penn State's got to run through the game. Which, real quick, side note for Uncle Bubba here.
Can Penn State beat Ohio State real quick?
Yes.
That's interesting to me.
Led by the tight end, Tyler Warren, from right here in Mechanicsville, Virginia, the Atlee High School. Okay?
Really?
The Atlee High School has the number one tight end in the country, Tyler Warren, playing football at the Penn State University. Ohio State ain't paying that bill.
High School. Justin is rocking the Atlee High School shirt across his chest.
You dang
Atlee
right.
High School is where Justin and I both went to high school, both graduated from. A lot of the group chat guys went there. A lot of the listeners went there. Man, what a time for Atlee High School to stand up, stand out. So now I'm definitely rooting for Penn State. I was already rooting for Penn State to beat Maddie's Ohio State Buckeyes. It doesn't matter who they play. I'm gonna root for probably against Ohio State every single time, but now I'm really rooting for Penn State. But if Penn State beats Ohio State, that's a massive win for Penn State.
Next weekend,
who is
at 12
not
o'clock.
They have not beaten Ohio State or Michigan, and I think the past 5 meetings combined of those two, when Penn State's actually been really dominant, had a chance to make some noise, and Penn State can't get over the hump. So let's see if in 2 weeks or next weekend, if Penn State can get Ohio State, led by Tyler Warren. I like that. That's outstanding.
Yeah, I think Penn State gets it done. They normally do, and Matt complains about this all the time. And listen, he's right. And you've seen some of this in the SEC this year. It's tough in the two biggest conferences in the world, the Big Ten and the SEC. It's tough to go play away games. You know what makes it even tougher? When you go to Penn State and they've got, let's say, 105,000. I think they're right there nipping at Michigan's bud. The Big House has the most. But when you go there, they always have some type of student feel, whether it's a whiteout, a blue out, whatever it is. And they come and bring the noise. I mean, I remember when Penn State was ranked lower than 20th and beat Ohio State. It's one of them things that I'll give the Big Ten this. It's hard to go to away games for blue blood type programs, a Penn State, a Wisconsin,
Sure.
Ohio State,
Sure.
Michigan. Tough to do that when the students are so involved. So good luck to Ohio State. Not next week. Penn State's going to roll them. Tyler Warren's going to have another 3 touchdowns. But that brings us to something, Mike. I know we don't want to spend necessarily hours on this, but the college football committee is getting ready to meet. They should meet. I think it's next week. In my opinion, if you just took the SEC right now and looked at their football games, college football is amazing. And I hate that Alabama's got 2 losses, but the fact that either top to bottom we're good or getting better, or top to bottom we're starting to all suck. It's good football. You're seeing close games. Now, granted, it could be bad teams who are just playing close, or you take an Ole Miss who Kentucky just comes in and beats it. There are things happening that are great for the overall. But right now in the playoff, there's a whole lot of teams that everybody's like, 12-team playoff, lock, that are no longer locks.
Well, and that's what you and I said.
Might not be locks in 4 weeks.
Let me tell you, you and I said that on our opening college football preview show, and I wanted to circle back to that at some point. I'm glad we're doing that now. Our opening show, we picked the 4 conference winners who we thought. Right now, you and I are 3 for 4 on those picks, with the Big 12 being the pick that no one saw coming out of Iowa State or BYU, potentially who's going to ever win that. But I will say, we talked about this in college football, and I told you this from the jump, that I don't think we're going to actually have an undefeated team. I just don't think that it was going to happen. It's still going to surprise me if we do. Oregon probably has the best shot right now to run the table and go undefeated once they got past Ohio State. But I can tell you, we talked about that. It was going to be a dogfight. If Georgia did it, they were going to be the best team. probably since college football started to run this
Yeah.
table and undefeated, and they're not, right. We know that they got beat by Bama, but they do look like an absolute powerhouse and probably will end up being one of your top 4 seeds when the playoff committee comes around by the time the playoff gets here. But I can tell you, college football has shrunk. The gaps have shrunk. Teams have gotten better. And we've seen that when you look at the rankings and you see teams up there, like a Navy and an Army, like Boise State being ranked high, Indiana, like you said, being ranked higher than Alabama. I mean, in what world do you ever see that? And just kind of going down, Kansas State being back to being relevant at 16, Pitt's at 19, Illinois at 20, SMU at 22. So, I mean, you've got some teams that have been ranked and that are jumping these rankings. College football is shrinking a little bit. College football, the competition gap is getting a little bit smaller, I think.
Well, I think if you look at Indiana, just take Indiana, for example, that guy used to be at JMU, okay, the head coach. What you're finding out is you'll have coaches that can coach. They can coach primetime players. And you have coaches that can go coach a program like Indiana, coach them up, have guys that have played that third year. Now they're on their fourth year because they're not going to the pros. And they've had that continuity. They keep going. They keep moving it, which has helped programs like that. Your Oregons, your Penn States, your OSUs, Georgia, LSU, Bama, Texas, those guys, they're getting 3 years out of their big boys, the ones that are going to start, the ones that are going to play, maybe even as a true freshman. But where they're losing is when you have the running back for the Saints and Derrick Henry come out of the same class, Alvin Kamara and Derrick Henry come out of the same class into Alabama, who have to sit as true freshmen, so they're redshirt freshmen behind guys like T.J. Yeldon. You don't have that anymore because you're not getting 2 5-star recruits to come to your school because you can't pay them. It's not possible. So,
sure. I agree with you. I mean, that's the thing with college football. It really has changed. We're going to get kind of our big topic about how big college football has changed and how dramatic the change has been and what we've seen and what we think it's good for. But, kind of getting to this competitive balance, I mean, the teams have gotten better. I can tell you, I'm so excited to watch the Army-Navy game when it does happen. I think that's going to be incredible. I do think Navy beats Notre Dame this weekend coming up. I believe in Navy a bunch. I was a big Memphis fan, rooting for Memphis to come out of the American to be the non-Power 5 school that makes the college football playoff. Navy beat Memphis, and Memphis is a good team, and Memphis had a dogfight of a game, but man, Navy's offense looks really good. That running game is dangerous, I think, and so I'm excited to see what they do against Notre Dame. And I actually think Navy wins outright. I know Notre Dame's favorite, but I think Navy wins outright. And I think Navy wins by double digits. I really do.
Well, Navy is just a different animal this year, and hopefully they get better. Keep improving week after week because they're going to need it. Yeah. They're going to need it when they have to play. Game in and game out. But the crazy thing is, Army and Navy play the week after conference championships, and they might actually play in the conference championship.
Sure.
Right now they look like they can go there. And if you're best of 5, I think you hit it. If Navy beats Notre Dame, Notre Dame's out, and Navy takes that spot.
So what's interesting about that? So Austin and I had this conversation. We were talking about that. So my understanding of the college football committee is that after the conference championships, the committee is set. The 12-team playoff is set. Army-Navy plays after that. So if Army-Navy gets a bid in, they're still in the playoff, and they got to play the Army-Navy game. The winner of that game, or the loser of that game, will not be affected if they are in the college football playoff, is my understanding. Are you on the same page as I am with that one?
Yeah, I think they watch all the conference championships meet and do their thing.
Exactly. And then now listen, Army-Navy may both be undefeated when they show up to each other.
Well, if they're undefeated, they go to the conference championship game.
That's what I'm saying. In the conference championship, they may be undefeated when they face each other.
The Army-Navy game in the conference championship won't have any effect. Like, you're not going to get both of you in. That's unless something god-awful happens and you have everybody in the Big Four would have to have 2 or 3 plus losses, right?
No, agreed. You're going to have an Army-Navy game before.
If Army-Navy is undefeated and the loser of that, let's say it's a 3-point game.
Sure.
They would have both happened to beat Notre Dame. So that means you beat a true. Notre Dame plays enough of a conference schedule to call them in the ACC, right? So you've beaten a team that has played people.
Let's say this.
I just don't know that you will get 2 in.
Let's say no. I don't think they get 2 in either. Let's say this though. Let's say they both go undefeated. They show up at the conference championship game. Do you just, in my opinion, if I was the athletic director for both, I'd just call that the Army-Navy game because it's got so much implications on the line. The winner of that game goes really. The winner of that game goes to the college football playoffs. So my problem would be you're going to play that game, and then the winner has to turn around and play again Army-Navy before going to the college football playoffs.
Yeah,
that's
fine.
hard.
It's fine.
I don't know. I think you may see something like that to where they may like, okay, this is now the Army-Navy game at this point because it's a historic thing.
You're talking about. You're talking about something I just don't think matters.
Going to the college football playoff doesn't matter.
I don't think the conference championship game or the college football playoff matters that much to Army and Navy. The players on the team. Now, hold on. The players on the team, yes.
Okay.
But when I watch the Army Navy game on NBC at noon, it is like watching the most. I guess thing that keeps this country, just like those guys keep us safe. It is like they're doing something fun, getting ready. The seniors are getting ready to go, whatever, you know. And I know it's not. I know we're not in World War I or World War II now, but it's just a different feel, and I don't think you can combine the two.
See, I think you can. I think you can enhance it. I think you have the game still has the most hype.
But
like,
you
that's
take
their
away.
biggest
You
rival.
take away. Something's going to hurt. Something's going to hurt. You're gonna.
Sure.
Something's
you
not
had
gonna,
more to the
not
game.
gonna
Oh
filter
man,
right.
I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. I mean, it's like if you. I mean, it's not the same thing kind of comparison, but it's like the Yankees and Red Sox ever playing a World Series. It'd be incredible to see that. Like it enhances it in a sense. I don't know. I think I'm excited. I hope the Army Navy undefeated happens and they both go to the American Conference.
I agree.
I'm rooting for that, to be quite honest with you. So it'd be interesting to see because Navy is actually my pick to get in the college football playoff from the non-Power 5 conference. I know at the beginning of the year I picked Memphis. Did not see Navy beating Memphis, so I'm going to roll with the team that beat my pick in Navy. I liked what I've seen from them. So my mid-season pick that we're doing our picks for the 12-team college football playoff tonight, mine is going to be Navy getting in from the non-Power 5.
And I agree with you. I just think they are really strong. I don't think Army's going to be able to beat them. I think they roll in MetLife and handle Notre Dame, and I mean handle them, just like you said, double-digit win there, which I love because I think Notre Dame thinks they're this big bad bully, and they're just not. They don't play the schedule they used to play. The ACC attachment really irritates me. So, you know.
So let's dive into the picks. So right now, our 4-conference championship. Who do you think comes out of the 4 conferences? Right now, I have Oregon out of the Big Ten.
Yep.
I got Georgia out of the SEC.
Yep.
I got Miami out of the ACC.
Nope. Got Clemson. So
I know. I'm going with Miami there. So we're 2 out of the same. We're different on the ACC. And then I'm going to roll with Iowa State out of the Big 12. A little surprise pick than BYU. BYU I wanted to take, but I think Iowa State's going to have a little bit better of a resume. I think they're a little bit better of a team. They've had to win late ball games to stay alive, and I think that does build character. That does give you a tenacity to play late game football. And so they have been tested before by bad teams. Don't get me wrong, but I think Iowa State comes out of the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean they had the win over Iowa. They've done what they've needed to do. The late win against UCF's a little rough. Their conference isn't great. The rest of their schedule is terrible. There's no. They don't have anything.
They don't play BYU.
No, and they've got Kansas State. Kansas State's the last, the real
BYU's
big foe they got November 30th. Yeah, but Utah's in trash. I don't
know if Utah's in the trash. Utah's still good, but I mean, I think
Utah's
Iowa
got
State
problems at quarterback. They can't play. Cam Rising, he came back through 3 picks. I mean, Iowa State has the cleanest, has a clean way to get in.
Correct.
With the Kansas State being the last game, and I think Kansas State's a little bit of a fraud there, but staying in the Big 12, BYU's my second pick. I think
to get in, really?
I think the Big 4 are going to get 2. So I'm going Iowa State, BYU out of the Big 12, and that's all they're going to get. I mean, obviously, there's nothing else there for them.
Okay. What else you got? So you said ACC with the Clemson. I think Miami's won some late games. I still believe in Miami's quarterback. I still believe in their play. I don't think Clemson's that good. I still think Miami rolls in the ACC.
So I think Miami. I agree with you. Miami's going to make the playoff out of the ACC, but they're going to come in second to Clemson. That'll be the ACC's second pick. Will be Clemson there. I mean, Miami behind Clemson, as Clemson's going to win the championship. There is no surprise. It should be Clemson and Miami in the ACC. Nobody's making a run for that. I mean, the teams they've added in the West Coast are horrible. The rest of the conference is horrible. No surprise there.
Does Notre Dame get in your opinion? If they lose to Navy, they're a two-loss team. Okay, that's right. I think so too. I think Notre Dame's out.
You can't. Navy their loss was so bad before Navy.
Sure,
they can't. There's just no change. So
I agree. I think right now the only two-loss team that can really get in is going to be Alabama. To be quite honest with you, out of the ACC, I think Miami. I know Miami gets in. I want to think Clemson gets in. I do. I'm not sold on that pick just yet. But I do think Clemson can do enough to get in because I think other teams are going to lose as well and get in. I do think Ohio State could potentially be a two-loss team that gets in as well. If Ohio State loses to Penn State and then wins out and is a two-loss team that lost to Oregon and Penn State, which are going to be in the playoff, I could see the argument for putting Ohio State in. So actually, I would say I think Tennessee gets in from the SEC. I think Georgia gets in from the SEC. I do think Texas gets in from the SEC. So the only thing that I would say is I think if the stars align and this happens, I think Alabama could be a two-loss team that gets in, and I think Ohio State could be a two-loss team that gets in as well.
So in my configuration here, I've got 9 teams taken care of, 2 from each conference and 1 from the best of 5. I don't think they'll get 2 in. You'd have to have something miraculous happen. As far as the Big Ten goes, so obviously got Oregon winning it. I still think Penn State's going to be a tough game for them in the championship. Penn State's got to get through Ohio State, let's be honest.
Sure.
But I think it's Oregon and Penn State are my 2 teams that are going to get in. Claude, I hope you're liking this. I'm giving Penn State all the love tonight, led by Tyler Warren out of the Atlee High School. But I have 2 schools written down as a possible 4 from the Big Ten, and that's Ohio State and Indiana. If Indiana can find a way to get through Ohio State, if they can take care of their business, Indiana has nothing but grass in front of them. And if they take advantage of that after beating Ohio State,
but then Ohio State's a 3-loss team. Then there's no way they're getting it.
Right. But the only way Indiana gets in is if they beat Ohio State.
Agreed.
I don't think a 1-loss Indiana gets in, especially if it's a 3-point game, maybe. But if it's a pummeling like Ohio State should put on them, if they don't show up, if they're a fraud, that's different, right?
Sure.
And we're going to find out this weekend when they play Washington. They need to pummel Washington. They need to beat Washington by 2 or 3 touchdowns.
Especially with game day in town.
And at home. And at home. That's a big thing. But I agree with you. If Penn State, Indiana, and Indiana beat OSU, they're out. The Big Ten could have the best chance to get 4 teams in. A 1-loss Indiana, a 1-loss Penn State, a 1-loss Ohio State, and an undefeated Oregon. Okay? That's 4. Then you take the rest of my conferences without adding anybody else. That's 6, because I got 2 for each conference, 10. And then 11, Notre Dame. The SEC would get your 12th team.
So the only downside of that logic is this. I don't know how Penn State and Ohio State and Indiana can all be 1-loss teams. Somebody's got to play Oregon for the Big Ten title game. And Penn State and Ohio State, if they trade losses, right? Ohio State beats them. So somebody's got to be a 2-loss team. So whoever that 2-loss team is gets out. The conference loser of that
if they lose,
is
the conference loser, it's going to be tough to get them out because that means he beat the tiebreaker. He beat the tiebreaker for the other ones. I agree, but and I don't have it lined up. Next week's show, I'll have the SEC figured out for you as to who plays who, what's left, and all that. But there's a whole lot of cross-pollination getting ready to happen, and so you could possibly have an undefeated team in the SEC championship game, play Georgia, lose. You putting them in? I mean, it could be Texas A&M.
So,
Texas A&M
so
could be
here's
undefeated
what
in the conference and lose to Georgia in the conference game, title game.
So here's what's interesting about that. So just like you said, cross-pollination, there's going to be a lot of beating up on each other, which we said. At the beginning of the show, I wanted to talk about how there is a strong pathway for 2 non-Power 5 teams to make this tournament. There really is. Because you're talking about, let's say Navy runs the table, beats Army, beats Notre Dame, wins the American, Navy's in, right? We know that.
Right, yep.
Boise State beats UNLV, and their only loss on the schedule is a dogfight against Oregon. Boise State's in as well. I can tell you this: Boise State will be ranked higher than Navy if Boise State does not lose out. Boise State right now is 17 and Navy's 24. There's no chance Navy's going to jump Boise State. I don't think so, unless Boise State loses. So you're going to have the higher ranked team be Boise State, but you're telling me as a committee, you're going to look Navy in the eye and not put them in the college football playoff being a conference champion undefeated? No chance. No chance. There is a pathway to where there are 2 non-Power 5 schools competing, because if you have a bunch of 2-loss teams in the SEC and the Big Ten and the ACC is not going to get that many in, but if the SEC and the Big Ten have a bunch of 2-loss teams because they trade losses to each other, I can tell you right now, I would slide a Navy and Boise State in there in a heartbeat.
Well, I can tell you. I just looked at Boise State's schedule. The only test left, which isn't really a test, is Oregon State out of the former Pac-12.
No, UNLV Friday night. UNLV Friday night is going to be a dogfight game.
I don't think UNLV's a test. It's in UNLV. I know that. I get that.
Dogfight of a game. Watch.
Boise State has possibly the greatest running back ever to run. Now, he's not running against competition that I would consider run defense heavy, but he's setting numbers ablaze. And it's wild, man. I mean,
sure.
It's absolutely wild what he's doing. I'd like to see that. Listen, yes, I want to see Alabama in the inaugural 12-team playoff. At the same time, we haven't shown our A game. We haven't played to our status quo. But here's the thing. UCF tried, didn't work out. Boise State can play against some of these teams. This is what a 12-team playoff does. So, Mike, I'm right there with you. If Boise State runs the table, in. If Navy runs the table, in.
Yep. And
then you can run into Big Ten could still get 4 in.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you right now. So right now I'm SEC, just to be clear with everybody. I've got Georgia, LSU, and Texas written down. I didn't put an A&M behind it, but it very well could be an A&M. Their only loss is a loss to Notre Dame right now. And Texas A&M has quite a bit of football left. Everybody does. We got games till November 30th, but at the same time, they have Texas the last game of the season, and they've got LSU this weekend. So
you're skipping Tennessee. You're skipping Tennessee. You're not putting Tennessee in.
No, I'm not putting Tennessee in.
Really? Because Tennessee has one of the easier SEC schedules remaining. Tennessee, the only game they have is on the road at Georgia. And, I mean, they end the season with at Vanderbilt, and I don't think Vanderbilt's that good. Tennessee could be –
No.
They're gonna be a 2-loss team if they go to at Georgia and lose. I think Tennessee can get in.
Claire, you'll like that. Matt's wife, Claire, you'll like that. Tom, what you're missing is their game next weekend is killer.
Oh, with Kentucky coming to town? Sure.
Kentucky is no – I mean, you look at what they've done to everybody else in the conference. Look at what they did to Georgia.
I get it.
This is where the SEC schedule gets
it's a hangover. It's a hangover game. It's a hangover game.
You've got 2. Well, they got a bye week. You get 2 bye weeks in college football now. Okay, all right. So they took their bye week after Alabama. Smart, because now you're going to one of your biggest rivalries ever. Well, actually, you're going to your second biggest rivalry after your biggest rivalry. If you listen to Nick Saban and most of the Tennessee fan base, then you have a patty cake in Mississippi State. I don't care what anybody says. Yeah, you can win any day of the week in the SEC. I get that. But Mississippi State is awful. Then you got Georgia. Then you go on another semi-bye. You play UTEP. Then you have Vanderbilt. So in the month of November, you got 3 games, 2 weeks apart. Kentucky on the 2nd, Georgia on the 16th, Vanderbilt on the 30th. That are that's not an easy schedule. One, Vanderbilt's already beaten Alabama. Okay, Kentucky took Georgia to the brink. Should have beat them. And then you've got Georgia themselves. Tennessee might come out because this is how Tennessee plays. They might come out of there and go 0-3 in those 3 games.
I doubt that, but again, that's why the end of this college football season is so great. That's why I do I do like the 12-team playoff. I do like the fact that the non-Power 5 gets a chance in there. I've got Georgia, Tennessee, Texas, and Bama coming out of the SEC. I do think all of them come out. I think Alabama is going to be the 12th ranked team that gets in. I think they're going to be the best 2-loss team that actually does get in. I think Tennessee gets in over Alabama because of the head-to-head win. Tennessee will be another 2-loss team that gets in. I do think that they get in. Texas is my team that's kind of, I'm putting them in because I can't think of who I really want to put in because I don't think the Big Ten gets 4 teams. I don't want to call out and say Navy and Boise State make it, so I'm kind of defaulting to Texas at this point that they're going to get in. I do think they beat A&M, but somebody's got to lose to Georgia in the SEC title game at that point. And we'll see. Maybe Georgia takes an L in that SEC title game and Georgia sneaks in and that SEC winner gets in. But it's going to be a heck of a season. I know. We've done a lot on college football tonight, and I think it's well deserved because of how crazy it's been, how big it's been, and also how new this 12-team playoff is and what it's going to look like.
Well, I'm sick and tired of hearing that the regular season doesn't matter because you can look at it right now. You've got right now just off of records and who you've beat. I've got 17 teams written down, and Texas A&M and Texas play the last game of the season. Alabama, even though Auburn's not great, has a tough test at the last game of the season. Indiana, Ohio State, they've got to play each other. Penn State, Ohio State, got to play each other. Penn State or Oregon's got to play one of them in the championship game. I mean, the SEC championship could be Texas A&M versus Georgia, and they beat Georgia.
Sure.
Or Georgia beats Texas A&M, but A&M's undefeated with a win against LSU, ranked number 8, and a win against Texas, ranked number 5 right now, in a mild loss to Notre Dame. And Notre Dame runs the table, and Boise State runs the table. I mean, there's opportunities from. There's only 2 conferences that are done that I believe get 2 teams in: Iowa State, BYU in the Big 12, Clemson, Miami in the ACC. That's it. You don't have anybody else.
I could also see, but one of those conferences only getting 1.
That's true, but I'm saying
I could see one of those conferences only getting 1.
Those 2 are maxed out at 2.
They're maxed out at 2. Listen, they're maxed out at 2. The non-Power 5, the non-Power 5 is maxed out at 2 as well. I think that's a max at 2. Probably going to be 1 max at 2. I actually personally think the ACC is only going to get 1. I think the Big 12 with BYU and Iowa State coming in could argue to get in there to make it at 2. If not, then I could see Clemson getting in there and getting that spot as well. I don't see all 4 of those teams getting in. I see 3 out of the 4 getting in there, but it's interesting. So we've talked about how crazy this playoff is. We're gonna continually bring that to you as listeners. Justin has done an incredible job giving you week in and week out stuff when it comes to the NFL. The 4 duds, the 4 studs. His pick, if you were following along, he went 13-1 in the NFL, which has actually been incredible to see. So really and truly, if you're not following at Bama Turk, you should be. Please look out for his picks. Look out for his scenarios. I know I've been in and out of the show, but again, I can tell you as we talk about college football, something Justin and I are passionate about, and we're going to talk more about this college football playoff. We wanted to kind of give a strong episode to college football, and one of the things that Justin and I are excited to talk about is this NIL, and is college football is the college football playoff, the 12-team playoff, NIL, transfer portal, coaches, is this killing college sports? Because there's a lot of people that before the NIL even came out said the playoff was going to kill it. The 12-team playoff was going to kill it. The regular season, didn't matter. There's a lot of things we've heard. So now we've got this melting pot, this big, pot of stew and junk that we've been served. And it's like, is it working? Is it not? Where are we at?
It's working to do what you referenced earlier. College football is tightening up. That means that fans of big programs, you're going to have to understand that you're going to go through what Alabama's going through right now. Where it's not working is, don't want to use morals because college football's never had morals. I mean, they just don't care about things. College football as a whole, coaches might, but now the coaches don't care because the players are making it horrible for them. Sure. And I can say that because I listen to the greatest say those exact same things. When we had another casualty this week of Tony Bennett from college basketball, bleeds in the same thing as football. The two biggest sports in the world, college football, college basketball, as far as amateur athletics. And Mike will tell you, he says this all the time, there is no more amateurism in college sports. I don't care if they're getting paid. They've always been getting paid. But now it's on the table. Now, instead of getting a $10,000 game check, because you won the SEC championship game, now you're getting $1 million checks a year. And to Mike's point, yes, it is the minor leagues. The problem is not even the minor leagues are managed this bad. What you're doing is, one, you're creating a culture in which little Johnny gets upset that coach didn't play him because he's not. Listen, these guys have to win football games. The player thinking that coach isn't playing you because he doesn't like you is dumb. You don't deserve to be on that spot. You're not the player you think you are. And the fact that you feel that way and you're allowed to just pick up your bag and leave because you're not getting the playing time mid-season and go play somewhere else next fall is ludicrous.
But they've allowed it.
Well, I agree.
I agree with you that it's ludicrous and it is crazy that this is happening. The kid out of UNLV, which that team is really, really good, and he's left mid-season, is bananas. Now, do I blame the kid? I don't. And everybody's going to be up in arms, and I can't wait to hear what Matty B says about this because he still wishes sports were played in the 1908s at this point, and we had leather helmets and we didn't have the forward pass. He doesn't like any of that kind of stuff. So I can't wait to hear what he says, but I don't blame the kid. In this day and age, at NIL, you sign a contract, you were told you were getting $100K, and they give you $10,000. I would leave too. You would leave a job right now, Justin, if they hired you for $100K a year salary, and your checks by the middle of the season were like, I've barely made $10,000. There's no way this money coming or what happened? You'd leave the job because again, we've got to start remembering. This is no longer an amateur sport. This is a job for them. This is no longer playing for the rivalry, the pageantry, the spirit of playing football. That's not what it is anymore. We've got to embrace what the new college football is, which is it's a contract. It's a job. And if you don't like it, you are more than free to go find a new employer. And that's what they're doing. And people are getting mad. Why?
Well, so here's why I get mad is, okay, so I'm not – that situation is he said, you don't know what's true, you don't know what's false. But here's where I think Ohio State not making the playoff is going to make me laugh and feel great. Caleb Downs left the University of Alabama to go to Ohio State. Now
he got more money.
He got more money, but Saban retired. So anybody that was on the Alabama team last year that wanted to leave, no problem with it. I have said that 20 years ago, and I'll say it again. If the coach leaves, your recruiting coach or the head coach leaves, you are free to go sign somewhere else and play immediately. In season, I don't care because you were broken, fed a bad batch of goods. Now, what is going on is the coach stays and you have a good year and somebody wants to pay you money to come there. Allowable, yes. The right thing to do, the right way to handle the situation by the school coming in and poaching these people, no. You're taking away from the spirit of the game. There is now, Gene Wojnarowski left ESPN to go be the GM at his alma mater for basketball. Now, that had a lot to do with time, less money, and he thought he could help him out because they're going.
Well, ESPN also was kind of screwing him a little bit too and paying him a lot less too. So there's a lot of behind the scenes. If you've noticed the past 5 years, a lot of people are leaving ESPN for that reason too. But to your point, here's where I say a lot of people were upset because they want the old college football back. We have got to understand this is the way things work now. This is the new college football. There's no way to put this music back in the box, right? We've cranked the handle and the little clown has popped out, and now we've got this clown show on our hands, and you can't get the clown back in the box. It is what it is. We've got to embrace this is what it is. It's free agency. It's minor leagues. These guys are signing contracts, and they're choosing new employers. They're not choosing new schools because, let's be honest, they're not going to the schools, the ones that bounce from school to school to school.
Right.
They're not going for the education, the pageantry, the mascot, the climate, whatever it is. They're going because they're getting the most money to go there, and that is what they're looking at because this is a job. Because we've also got to remember, 10% of these kids have an NFL career. So this is their chance to make money. And they're doing that. I don't have a problem with that. I do have a problem that is ruining college football. I do have a problem there. But we've allowed this to happen as a fan base, society, whatever, because this is what it's come to. And now it's happening and people are mad. And I'm like, why? They're allowing this now. It's part of the rules. No one's breaking the rules anymore. We all got mad when it was like, oh, I can't believe that coach was paying that kid under the table. Now it's out on the table and we're still mad. I mean, at this point, we're never going to be as satisfied. We're never content with what we have. We're always going to miss what we, a lot of times, I don't say always, a lot of times we're going to miss the old way of doing things. And that's why we got mad at our parents when they said that kind of stuff. And now we're the old ones saying that now to kids.
You're right.
But here's the reality of it. We've got to get used to it. Or what I've started to do is change the channel a little bit. I'm watching less college football because I don't want to, it's not the college football I want to see. It's not the product that I want to see on the field.
Well, so to that point, so what Saban said, they've talked about this, and what he brought up is he said, okay, so this is name, image, and likeness. Well, there's not a whole lot of name, image, and likeness going on. It's a whole bunch of collectives. You see Quinn Ewers is doing the Dr. Pepper commercial. That's name, image, and likeness. What's not name, image, and likeness is Ohio State getting $20 million in donations and paying players from that. What's not NIL is the Supreme Court saying, oh, colleges, you can make your players paid employees now. Well, now just stop with their students.
Sure.
Stop with that. Stop taking scholarships from every other sport to give them to football players. Just say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to have a pro team, and instead, which I 100% believe is what needs to happen for these, in Ryan Williams' case, number 2 for Alabama wide receiver who helped beat Georgia, what you have to do is say, okay, we're going to go to class, but the classes we're going to go to is how to live life. You're making $1 million. He's going to make $1 million next year easily in his sophomore year.
Sure.
Okay, here's what we need to do. How do we function as a team, okay, or as a person with this much money? What do we need to do to make sure that we're getting the most out of our money, whether it's putting it somewhere to sit in a savings account, putting it in stocks, 401k type plan, whatever.
The downside, though, is before we even get to that point, you're talking about, hundreds of universities need to put that in place, and they're not going to do that. 1, 2, or maybe not hundreds, maybe 70 universities need to put that in place for that kind of stuff. But the problem what they're going to do is what we're going to see is you're going to have contract disputes. You're going to have lawyers suing schools because this is what it's come to. It's a contract. Here's where I have the biggest problem with what you were talking about. Stop calling them students, because if you are someone that grew up an Ohio State fan and you don't play sports and you are not a gifted athlete and you just want to go to Ohio State because that is the school you grew up to, your family went there, that's where you want to grow, you grew up outside Columbus, etc. But you are told you can't go because you don't meet the grade point average, you don't meet the SAT scores, whatever. And then you see knuckleheads come on the football team and they can get enrolled in Ohio State. That's where I have a problem, because we're going to allow them to come to school, and then you're going to tell the kid that really wants to be there that he can't go. And then now the kid that had his spot in that school now just transferred to Alabama. Why? That's where I have the problem. That's where the issue is going to come in. Everybody's going to say, well, do better in grades or be a better athlete. I understand that argument. I get that. If you know what the entry requirement says, you have to work hard to get to that point. My problem is that they're letting people get around that entry requirement, so it's not really a requirement.
Yeah, because when you transfer, it's just your college classes. They don't look at your high school anymore for the most part. Yeah. So where UVA take a school here that never could compete with Tech and still can't in football because of their requirements to have football players come in, so they couldn't get the Michael Vicks, and the Allen Iversons out of the beach. Well, okay, but if we could transfer them in and their college grades are 3.0 or better, well, we're cooking now. We've got something.
Sure.
100% agree. It's gonna destroy what we love about college football. The question is, can we handle it? Can we deal with the prima donnas it's going to create? Listen, Travis Hunter made a statement, and this is what he said. He said, and I'm not going to quote, this is kind of paraphrasing here. He said, basically, imagine what I would have if I was getting the targets that the Boise State running backs getting handoffs. Well, okay. I mean, that's great. Imagine if Shohei Ohtani didn't have to have Tommy John surgery twice.
If a bullfrog had wings, if my uncle could be my aunt if he wanted to. Yeah.
Right. It's that kind of attitude, and it comes a lot out of Colorado. Listen, I love Dion coaching. I love the swag he brings. It's a situation, though, where you need to start beating people that you shouldn't be beating and beating the tar of the teams you should be beating to where y'all can flap them jaws a little bit, because at the end of the day, you really haven't done anything, and your two best players are leaving at the end of the season. So at the same time, though, you look at what that culture is, and that culture is about making money. It's about winning football games, but they try to make money. I mean, all the deals they've inked, all that stuff.
Sure.
And it's created a program that has no discipline or understanding of just because I look good doesn't mean I'm the best. Then you go to a program like Georgia, and they some dogs, man. There's some dogs out in Georgia. They've got problems, and everybody's going to court. Everybody's getting tickets. But at the end of the day, what you have to understand is Kirby Smart's running a program with athletes that are getting paid.
Sure.
And they're taking advantage of it because they come from places that aren't necessarily highfalutin areas. They haven't had this access. And you're trying to do something that is beneficial for college football athletes because you don't want to feel guilty about all the money you're making as the NCAA, but you're killing
the sport.
You're just killing a sport that we all love.
And it's ruining college athletics. It really is. So what else, Justin? Kind of close out on college football, because that's kind of we told the listeners it was going to be part one of this episode. We've talked a lot about the NIL. We've talked about how great Saban and McAfee are on game day. Justin, you heard Justin and I give our college football playoff picks mid-season. We gave our conference winners at the beginning of the season, and so we've shuffled and readjusted our thinking. Again, not taking anything in the way of how good or bad we did in the beginning. We want to also give some mid-season picks. We gave our thoughts on some updated games. And where we stand. So closing us out from my side with the NIL is I think the NIL is here to stay. It is what it is. And we've lost college football of what it used to be. And we've got to just come to grip the terms of what it is now. So what else we got on college football, Justin? Close us out.
Listen, this weekend is going to be some wild football being played. You got two big games in the SEC. You got LSU and Texas A&M. Both are undefeated in the SEC. Then you have Texas and Vanderbilt. If Vanderbilt shows up against Texas, they're going to prove that they are a team to be reckoned with. And that's just SEC ball. Oregon plays Illinois. That's no test for them, I don't believe. As we've talked about, get away from the X's and O's. What is really hurting, us as we love to watch college football. We love the sport. We love the pageantry of all the games, the rivalries, is that you're not, all this name, image, and likeness, and you want to sell jerseys. Well, some players are going to have jerseys from 4 or 5 schools.
Sure.
And you don't get to watch them year in and year out compete in the SEC or compete in the Big Ten or the soon-to-be Pac-12 again or the ACC. It's hard to keep up with these guys, and you don't want to see the powerhouses, the playoffs taking care of that. But now the NIL has made anybody eligible to get in. It has definitely created a better atmosphere for all the teams to be eligible or at least try and compete. The problem is you're taking away from the college experience for these kids. As much as it was back then, now it's pretty much nothing now because their money, their commercials, their all this stuff. And I just think you're hurting a game that this was needed in some fashion. It's just we have, like you said, opened up Pandora's box and a big turd came out and we're like, we'll just go deal with it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I'm not going to leave on a sad note. At the end of the day, Alabama's got Missouri this week. They're coming away with a win. They're going to work their way to the playoff and go undefeated the rest of the way. But college football's got a lot going on. If you're not paying attention, if you're not enjoying it, man, it's so much fun to watch it. Most of the games have been really good. You've had big leads, comebacks. I mean, the Miami Tech game was great. The finish, pay attention. It's a lot of fun out there.
Yeah, it's great. It's been good. So, listen, follow us up on X at Up and Running Pod. Look after us. We're going to be sticking with you on this college football playoff. We're making picks as we go on. If you have a thought on your picks, you want to shoot us your 12, who you think is in, please do.